Welcome to the booth here for round number 4 of Mythic Championship 2, live from London in the UK. My name's Riley and I, joined by Simon Gertzen, and I tell you what, my friends, I'm very excited to get underway with one of my very favourite formats. We're going to head down to the feature match area, see how things shake out between two hard-hitting heavyweights of modern Magic. Simon, tell us a little bit about this matchup.
So we are going to look at Reid Duke on Junt. He is one of the players associated with the archetype. Well, really, Idle might have a word with you there. And then we have Dmitriy Butakov, who is definitely still under the radar for some of these pros here. He's just a very quiet guy, lives somewhere in Russia, Siberia, I don't know. But he is a force to be reckoned with whenever he's at one of these events.
The patron saint of Magic Online grinders everywhere is Butakov. But Reid Duke, of course, Mr. Magic, a name I'm sure you're familiar with around the world, ladies and gentlemen, and we are off to the races here. This is emblematic of the Jund deck here. We call these decks the Rock. It's a green-black base deck, Simon, very heavy on interaction, removal, and a high card quality, not so much synergy, whereas the humans list many more synergistic components and a lot less interaction, but it can still mess with what you're up to. A turn 1 fatal push to remove that noble Harak. That's a great start here.
Yeah, and this is the interesting round 4 dynamic where deck lists have not been exchanged. So this is the one round where our players are going to play blindly.
So for the rest of the rounds, throughout the modern portion, deck lists will be shared at the beginning of the round between players. They'll have a minute to review the opposing deck lists, which will have the full starting 60 with all the numbers, and then in the sideboard, just the names of the cards. No numbers in the sideboard. You know, they could have 1 copy, could have 4 copies. You're not going to be sure as the meddling mage comes across. Chris Bakula cracking some skulls today. So we do have a different dynamic here for round 4, however.
Exactly, and if I'm reading this correctly, then Butakov actually called Dark Confident with his first meddling mage, which Reid does have in his hand.
It looks like it is a Dark Confident. Bob Marr, to many others, of course, on the first meddling mage. Second one has named Liliana of the Veil. 2 real haymakers in the Jund deck, which, as I mentioned, doesn't tend to be very heavy on synergy, just relying on raw card quality here. And Reid Duke, I mean, there's no surprises there. This guy, he knows what he's about, Simon. He knows what kind of Magic he likes to play, and it's no surprise to learn that he's turned up with a good old Jund.
Yeah, this is different from a lot of the Mythic Championships we see in the standard format, where players, especially those on teams, will often show up with one deck, a team deck. Here, it's a lot more about personal preference. So, for example, you might see Reid Duke just play Jund because that's what he's most familiar with, but that doesn't mean that John Finkel is also on Jund.
No. The rest of the team, could have. If you've got a pet deck in Modern is a format that rewards mastery, Simon. So if you've been on a list for a long time, if you're like Dr. Frank, you've been playing Affinity since the birth of the universe, then you are very heavily incentivized and very heavily rewarded, in fact, for playing lists like that. Here's a Colligan's Command now, taking out both the meddling mage and a Reflector Mage from the hand of Butakov here, but a Mantis Rider is going to get busy.
There was a very clear 2-for-1, very clean 2-for-1, with a Reflector Mage being discarded. On the other hand, that Reflector Mage didn't really have anything to do because Dark Confident is still stuck in Duke's hand.
Looks like Duke's going to be able to deploy it this turn, should he so choose. There's another Reflector Mage and a Phantasmal Image. So Duke's going to be able to pick whichever of those 2 cards he chooses. Now, astute viewers may have noticed, my friends, we've received a slight upgrade. Well, not a slight upgrade, let's be honest, Simon. A significant upgrade to the viewer experience this weekend. Partnering with Cardboard Live. We're very excited to bring them on board for the Mythic Championships. I've been hanging out with the guys who are behind it, and Hunter and Wilson there, and they're doing a fantastic job with this app. It is truly magnificent. It's the future of Magic broadcasting as far as I'm concerned. It should be active if you're watching this on desktop. There'll be little icons there. You can see a metagame analysis. You can see the deck list for these players and a wealth of other information as well, Simon. And if you're on mobile, you can access it as well. You just need to hit that little Cardboard Live icon, and then it'll all pop up for you. You are certainly missing out should you not choose to activate the Cardboard Live app. So Duke now, after this Inquisition, removes the Phantasmal Image, leaving Butakov with just a lonely Reflector Mage in hand.
Duke took quite a while to make that decision, but it wasn't really so difficult because Phantasmal Image on this board is just a scary copy of Mantis Rider, threatening 3 more hasty damage.
Phantasmal Image, one of the only creatures in the deck that isn't a human. Humans tends not to play many other creature types. Sometimes in the board you have, a Knight of Autumn or something coming in, but Phantasmal Image just that good that it does break down that barrier. But in comes another attack for 5 now, with Mantis Rider clipping in along with the Meddling Mage. Tarmogoyf off the top for Duke, in addition to a Scavenging Ooze and Dark Confident in hand.
And now Duke is actually already on 7. Those creatures might be a little bit too late. However, Scavenging Ooze can gain him some life.
Yes, plenty of food for the Ooze in the bin.
Oh.
But another Mantis Rider off the top here for Butakov, and that's a huge draw. Enormous amounts of pressure just piling on here for the Russian. And Duke looking at just no choices other than to take 6 in the air. The Scavenging Ooze goes and gets a light lunch, exiling the Phantasmal Image. And back to Duke now. He needs an answer to those insects.
He needs the top decker removal right here. Maelstrom Pulse would be amazing.
Oh, yeah. See what he can find. See the Dark Confident. That's another Inquisition here, as we see the Swamp Tap to the left. And Duke realizes the writing is on the wall, and that's that. We're packing things up for game number 1. Dmitriy Butakov winning in very convincing fashion. Duke did have a fair bit of interaction, but the raw pace of the humans deck definitely got the better of him this time, Simon.
And Butakov made the right call with the first Meddling Mage. This game looks very different if Dark Confident is active from turn 2.
That's about that for game number 1, my friends. We're going to have a quick break, but we'll be back with more live Modern action from London at Mythic Championship 2. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you back after this.
There are lots of great decks in Modern, Frank, and this one we're going to talk about Ad Nauseam.
Yep, Ad Nauseam is a 2-card combo deck that first needs to reach 6 mana. Thanks to Lotus Bloom and Pentat Prism, you can easily do that by turn 4.
What are we going to do with that then?
Well, the 2-card combo is mainly Angel's Grace plus Ad Nauseam. So Angel's Grace makes it so that you cannot lose the game this turn, and then Ad Nauseam allows you to pay life to draw your entire deck. Even if you fall into negative life, well, doesn't matter, because Angel's Grace is protecting you. On this slide we also have some protection and redundancy. Pact of Negation is the protection. Pretty good to counter an opposing counter when you're going to win the game that turn anyway. Also, sometimes you have to counter something on turn 2 or turn 3, at which point the opponent thinks, aha, but then they cannot pay for the upkeep, at which point you just respond to the pact trigger by casting Angel's Grace and make sure that you don't lose to it. So it's kind of create your own force of will, which is sweet.
Neat.
Speaking of redundancy, Spoils of the Vault can fetch Ad Nauseam, especially when you've made sure you cannot lose the game. And Fraction Unlife can stand in for Angel's Grace.
All right.
So once you've drawn your entire deck, the plan is to exile 3 Simian Spirit Guides, cast Lightning Storm, and discard 9 lands. Alternatively, especially if your opponent is at too high of a life total, you also have a one-off Laboratory Maniac to win with. So this is a powerful 2-card combo deck in Modern. It can consistently win by turn 4, and it is unaffected by Graveyard Hate, which is also quite relevant.
Also worth noting that sometimes you're going to see opponents scooping up their cards because once you know you're going to lose, you do just go on and lose to this deck. Ad Nauseam, it keeps coming back for more.
Welcome back to the feature match area here at Mythic Championship 2, live from London in the UK. My name's Riley Knight, joined by Simon Gertson. And Simon, we've just seen Dmitriy Butakov take apart Reid Duke's Jund deck, Butakov on humans. And now these players hitting the sideboards. Things, while those players are getting ready, we'll pop over to another table here. Yu Watanabe on Tron, playing Matt Sicking Johnson here on what looks like humans as well.
Mm-hmm. A bit more shiny.
Yes, we got a few more premium foil cards on the side of Johnson here. This is a matchup that I expect to see a lot more of than Jund, because Tron humans, they're really top tier decks at the moment. Absolutely,
especially Tron has benefited from the London Mulligan. It was a good deck to begin with. Here you can see Watanabe digging for an answer desperately. Does he have an Oblivion Stone or an Ugin to survive here?
His life made Much more difficult, of course, by the Thalia there, Guardian of Thraben, of course, making everything more expensive. But it looks like Watanabe was not able to come up with the goods there. And
the way he pointed to Meddling Mage, I think Meddling Mage was disallowing him from casting that Oblivion Stone.
Naming O-Stone. Well, there you go. Good, smart stuff from the Humans play. But let's check in with a different Humans play now. Back to Dmitriy Butakov versus Reid Duke. Reid Duke's got to win 2 on the trot here if he wants to get back in this game, Simon. I've already said that we are probably going to see a lot of Humans this weekend, but what do you think of Jund? How well is it positioned at the moment?
Well, first of all, Reid Duke is, of course, also a human player.
Oh yes, I should say yes. He's not some sort of extraterrestrial. Well, the investigation is ongoing.
We don't have proof.
There's no proof to indicate that he is not. But for the time being, we're safe in that assumption.
So the cool thing about Jund is that it can play from all angles. So in some matchups it's the aggressor. In some matchups it's almost like a pure control deck. And of course, when you're playing against an aggressive deck like Humans, you want to be that step slower, but you want to control what the opponent is up to. And it does look like on the play with the discard spell, Reid Duke might have more control over what Butakov is able to cast here.
So Inquisition of Kozilek is going to take care of what looks like was that an Auriok champion there?
Very difficult to deal with due to its protection from black and red.
And an interesting card to have been, not only brought in this matchup, I guess that does make sense, but Dmitriy Butakov with Auriok Champion, I mean, generally seen as one of the, an answer to many of the aggressive decks in the form of particularly Burn. But we haven't come into this tournament, Simon, expecting a heavy Burn metagame component.
No, not at all. At the same time, I kind of like the idea that you want to really only play the highest impact cards in your sideboard. And Auriok Champion, when it's good, it's great. So you don't have to sideboard too much more. Actually, this island looks really weird in this hand.
Yeah, it doesn't look great. Doesn't look great. Look at that. I mean, it can help, cast half a Reflector Mage or a third of a Mantis Rider here, but otherwise it's not looking too good here.
Mantis Rider is uncastable. Dismember costs 4 life. Dark Confident, uncastable. And Reflector Mage doesn't have a target.
It's a weird hand.
It's not a good hand.
It's a very well. All right, okay. I mean, I was trying to be diplomatically euphemistic, but yeah. Oh, smell that, Simon. It's a real stinker.
There are a lot of lands that the human player can top deck that just enable all of these cards immediately.
Yeah, immediately solves the problem. Something like a Cavern of Souls, easy game, just like that.
Great hand.
Yep, it's a perfect hand. It's the perfect hand, Simon. If you could stack your deck, that's what you'd want. Here comes Noble Hierarch in for 1 with the Exalted trigger, Cavern of Souls, presumably naming human.
A nice lesson to be learned there from the decision that Reid took. Reid didn't go for Reflector Mage because that was the castable card.
Yes.
He still went for the most powerful card in Mantis Rider, the card that would bother him the most, because he is not planning for his opponent to be terribly unlucky. He's planning for the worst case of them top decking something like a Cavern of Souls.
Fatal push off the top now for Duke. That's a great draw. I think you'd be happy to draw cards like that all day long against human. And we're seeing an escalated collective brutality. So away goes the Dismember. That's a stone cold 2 for 2, and one that I think in the long run favours Reid, because the Jund deck is able to play off the top of its library so much better than almost any other deck in the format.
It's funny that collective brutality must be one of the weakest removal spells you have available to you in this matchup, because the humans deck usually doesn't have an instant in their hand. But here, Reid knew that there was a Dismember, so he discarded an extra card.
Yep, here's a Champion of the Parish now. That was obviously a recent acquisition here for Butakov. Back to Duke, who's functioning reasonably well on just 2 lands. He is going to want to find a green source to cast that Maelstrom Pulse at some point, but look at that, a hand flush with interaction. That's what I like to see, Simon.
The fact that Reid has that collective brutality after sideboarding shows me that he's probably playing every single removal spell that is available to him. So he doesn't mind not playing a 3rd land as long as he can keep the board relatively stable.
For new viewers who are perhaps joining us in the wake of the Mythic Invitational or any other of the high-profile Magic events that have been going on, welcome. Welcome, by all means, welcome. And I tell you what, you've got an exciting time ahead of you. And part of that is going to be getting to know the man Reid Duke a little better. This guy is a modern all-star of the game, an absolute gentleman, Mr. Magic as he's known by some, and he's one of the identities in Magic that you definitely want to get across in terms of just share. I mean, he's a fastidious content creator. He's very open with the ideas, sharing his expertise. and wrote the book in an almost literal sense on the card Thoughtseize. He really does know what he's up to in a matchup like this, and you can see it. He's controlling the pace of this game, Simon. A decent hand for him here with Liliana the Last Hope, Dark Confidant, and Maelstrom Pulse. He does need that third land.
He just
and
found
now
it.
with the Verdant Catacombs, there's the forest.
This is amazing. He knew that Dark Confidant would get bounced if Butakov drew a land for Reflector Mage, but if he hadn't, then the Confidant would have actually stuck around.
So the land off the top here for Duke's going to be a good one. Here is Liliana the Last Hope, and that's immediately going to neutralize Reflector Mage as a threat, taking it down to a 0-2. And Liliana, again, one of these cards that overperforms in creature-based matchups.
Yeah, it also works perfectly with the game plan that Reid has, which is to not bother with most of his creatures at all. Just running those into Reflector Mages or getting beaten in the air is how you lose this matchup. But just going removal, and then generating card advantage with those Planeswalkers, that's how you win.
And that is exactly what we're seeing here, Simon, with an Auric Champ being flashed in to that Aether Vial, but double Liliana here. Liliana the Last Hope and Liliana of the Veil, an Edict effect from the latter, and a useless upstairs for the former. Now, Auric Champion's going to stick around. Duke is not going to be able to find an answer to that very easily. The question is, can Butakov start putting +1/+1 counters on the champion to make it a respectable threat?
Yeah, and this is what I'm always asking myself. If you board in a card just because it survives, is it actually worth it, given that it's only a 1/1 on its own? So is Reid actually unhappy about you having a 1/1 there rather than something more threatening?
Here's the Dark Confidant now. Of course, Duke is not able to give the Auric Champion -1, of course, because it does have protection from black, and that includes the activated abilities of Planeswalkers. A lot to get across in the modern format. For the new viewers, please stick with us as we try to part the veil here a little bit as Auric Champion knocks Liliana down for 1. And here's Dismember, another one on the Dark Confidant. And you can see how key that threat is. Just a 2/1 that's going to draw you a bunch of extra cards. And Butakov has a lot of respect for Bob Marr. We'll see what's on the docket next here for Duke. Still in hand for him, a Maelstrom Pulse. Hasn't been put to any use so far. Duke, very emphatic activation of Liliana the Last Hope. And this means he can get back some business. Here's that Bob Marr Dark Confidant coming back from the bin. Another life here for Butakov, who doesn't seem to have come up with too much action of his own here, Simon.
No, I believe that he's just holding 2 lands. So if he doesn't draw into action quickly, this game will soon be over.
Yes, Liliana the Last Hope threatening to just get a monstrous amount of value here. But it's Dark Confidant that is going to start drawing cards here for Reid Duke, who at 17 can really take a bit of a pasting from the top of his deck. Lightning Bolt is going to get him for 1 and an extra card now. So this is the position the Jund player wants to be in. Firmly in control, removal in hand, threats on the table, and this is how they get it done.
And Butakov with the high-level bluff of not playing a land when you have 3 in hand.
I mean, you know, you watch the Mythic Championship for a reason, Simon, to see the best players play the best kind of Magic. And I don't know, poor old Butakov's in a sticky position here. And now off the top, it's Thalia. Too little, too late, you would think here for the Russian.
No, but if you're playing humans, you're not doing that to win the long game,
no.
Right? Especially not in this match.
You're not on that grind.
I do like the idea of flashing in a Thalia to ambush a Dark Confidant, but Butakov is just losing on all axes here.
On most, except for the lands in hand axis, he's losing on basically every conceivable metric. Duke goes downstairs with Liliana looking to gain some more value. How about a Bloodbraid Elf? Value given form, Simon.
Love it.
Tell us about this card.
This card is pretty good. Was banned at a time. And actually, one thing that is great about it is not just the value, but how you can construct your deck, especially after sideboarding, to have only great hits. So the key is you want your 3s, 2s, and 1s to always be relevant. So for example, here, if you hit a removal spell, you want to make sure that it can actually hit a creature.
We were talking about high-level play, Simon, and without a shred of irony, we just saw some very high-level play there from Butakov, flashing in the Thalia in response to the Cascade trigger, which would mean that Duke wouldn't be able to cast any 2-drops that he found. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but that should have cost 2, that lightning bolt, right?
No, because, well, it should have cost 2, but he doesn't cast, well, he doesn't pay the mana for the cascading.
Oh, right.
He
so
only
has
pays
to pay the extra 1.
Yep.
Right. Okay, so that leaves enough mana for you to cast the Tarmogoyf there. Cascade, not quite free in this case. You've got to pay the piper. There's a little tax on that lightning bolt there, but ultimately things falling in Duke's favour. And he's just going from strength to strength. This one looks to be in the book, Simon.
Yeah, but I mean, Reid Duke is the proponent of never concede, so...
Well, it doesn't look like Dmitriy Butakov follows that line of thinking as we see Duke with an emphatic victory in game number 2. We're going to go to game number 3, ladies and gentlemen, here live at Mythic Championship II from London in the United Kingdom. My name's Riley Knight, joined, of course, by Simon Gertzen, my good friend and colleague. We can say, well, these guys have got to hit the sideboard once again, Simon, and in the meantime, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with the final deciding game of these two before very much longer. So we'll see you back here in London in just a few minutes.
So hard and got so far, but in the end, it doesn't even matter. I had to fall to lose it all, but in the end, it doesn't even matter. Doesn't even matter. I had to fall to lose it all, but in the end, it doesn't even matter.
As you stitch together the broken piece of your heart, ladies and gentlemen, being rent asunder there, my friends, we are welcoming you back to the feature match area here at Mythic Championship II. You're in the booth with me, Riley Knight, joining me, Simon Gertzen as well. Simon, Reid Duke, Dmitriy Butakov, Humans versus Jund. We're going to game number 3.
Yep. And this time, Humans is going to be on the play once again. We already saw that this was quite important for the Jund deck to play this kind of control game. But of course, you can also do that on the draw. Your answers are actually quite inexpensive, most of them costing 1 mana.
Duke's hand is a little clunky here with multiple 4-drops, but some early action, Fatal Push, and of course Scavenging Ooze. We'll see what Butakov's working with here as well. Thalia Guardian of Thraben, that's a great way to proactively defend the creatures, the threats you're going to play later on, and I'm not surprised to see it here cast on turn 2 very earnestly by Butakov.
Absolutely. Well, he didn't really have another choice anyway, but also either your opponent invests a spell and the extra mana to get rid of Thalia immediately, or they're going to continuously have to pay extra for dealing with other creatures.
Yeah, so I think Duke heavily incentivized to fire off that Fatal Push here, and we're going to see it. There it is, right? No, they're making me look like an absolute genius. Thank you, Reid. I very much appreciate that, of course. I'll take every advantage I can get, my friends. God knows I need them. All right, Butakov now, a couple of 3-drops in hand. We've got a Reflector Mage. I can't imagine that's an enticing play for him here, but a Mantis Rider, Simon, that might get the job done.
Absolutely. Also castable this time around. Auriok Champion once again, so definitely the next game where we will see if Auriok Champion pulls its weight.
Perhaps a little bit more weight than it pulled last time. Didn't seem to have the effect that I think Butakov wanted, but even if you can just get 1+1/+1 counter on it with something like Athalia's Lieutenant, then all of a sudden it's up and about and ready to spout, ready to get done. Duke now, Scavenging Ooze in hand, a Tarmogoyf off the top, but I think he's really going to lean heavily on those Bloodbraid Elves to get him back in this, because I think already starting to fall just a little bit behind here.
I think he wants to fire off Kolaghan's Command, and you can tell how smartly Reid has sideboarded, but it's also playing this game. He knows that investing mana into one of his creatures is the way how you lose this game, because then Reflector Mage just comes down and you're too far behind on life totals.
Contesting the board is a risky proposition when there are cards like Reflector Mage and Phantasmal Image to back it up, although I wouldn't be surprised if those Phantasmal Images hit the board.
Phantasmal Image, especially against Kolaghan's Command, is an issue.
It's a real stinker.
If this violent creature hadn't been Auriok Champion, what Reid could have done would have been to end of turn Kolaghan's Command, your Vial, and your...
We've already had lunch, Simon, but it looks like we're going to eat a big steaming bowl of our own words here, because here is this Phantasmal Image, and this is great. Duke's going to be all smiles here. This is an easy 2-for-1 with the Kolaghan's Command.
I like how he's deep in the tank here. Well, you have to hope that this copies the Mantis Rider, of course, because protection from red and black is tricky to deal with.
Nope, as it is, it's going to be the Mantis Rider, and so in come the Clowns across for 7, but Duke is definitely going to have something to say about this. The easiest Kolaghan's Command of his life. 2 damage and Shatter on the Aether Vial.
I think you could even go for discard, because there are only 2 cards in Butakov's hand. However, the chance that there's a land is just too high.
Yeah, and that Horizon Canopy would be an easy discard there for Butakov. So masterfully played by Duke, who is continuing to keep himself in it, although does need to find an answer to that Reflector Mage. Now let's see if Bloodbraid Elf is going to come up trumps here. We'll see if it's going to deliver the goods here for Reid Duke. What's he looking for? What's the ideal hit off of his...
Honestly, anything that deals with Mantis Rider that turn is huge. And I think, well... in theory, if you hit a 3-drop, you're getting the most value out of it. I would definitely like to see one of the Planeswalkers so that one of the creatures is going down.
So Liliana of the Veil, perhaps, as an edict effect, is one of the answers that Duke has here. But here is Bloodbraid Elf, the Cascade mechanic, allowing you to cast a card for free off the top. A Dark Confidant. Now, this does mean that Duke is going to have cards flowing freely off the top of his library, but he is under a bit of pressure here, and it looks like he's actually thinking about whether he wants to cast it.
It is optional whether you want to cast something off Cascade. The fact that Reid is thinking here means he has hit one of the worst cards that
yeah, because otherwise you're like, all right, whatever, I'll take it. It's free, huh?
It's rare, especially in Modern, that there are cards that you don't really want to have.
But Dark Confidant, sometimes the cost of greatness can become a little too high, and we are in one of those situations where Duke is looking at the contents of his wallet and just being like, I don't know if I can pay the cost of greatness here, and it's going to go below decks as a result.
That is a high level play. Yeah. It might not get rewarded, but it is definitely something that most players, I would say, wouldn't even have considered.
So, in comes old BBE here. Across for 3, of course. She's not going to be doing too much blocking, so may as well get in for some lunch. And that Horizon Canopy cycled away for Butakov, who still has 3 cards in hand, one of which is a Reflector Mage that we know about. You don't really want to bounce a Bloodbraid Elf, but it is going to strand it in hand for Duke. And that's what we call a tempo approach, right? Temporary denial of resources while you press an onboard advantage.
Exactly, and I think had Butakov had another 2-drop, like let's say a Meddling Mage, then Duke wouldn't have attacked with his Elf. Then we might have seen that play. Now it does seem a lot weaker to bounce that Bloodbraid Elf.
Well, he's going to take that line all the same here as we see a Reflector Mage come in after a champion of the parish. That means the champion gets a +1/+1 counter. The board is clear. And Butakov is free to get in for 4 damage here.
Yeah, and he has drawn 5 lands, but cycled away one of them. Got 2 for 1 by the Colgan's command, but Etherval had already done his work.
He's still in it.
Oh, I mean, he's very far ahead, in fact. Now Duke has to spend those 5 lands, this 5 mana, very efficiently, because so far his cards haven't had the impact he wanted.
I think the key thing to take away from not just this game, but indeed this match, is the difference between where Duke won game 2 and lost game 1 and looks to be losing this game as well, is how effectively he disrupted the synergies of the humans deck. If you can never let them get that snowball effect started, they're playing 1/1s. They're playing 2-mana 1/1s and embarrassingly sized creatures here. Whereas if you allow them to sort of get their foot in the door, it's very hard to pull yourself back in it.
This was a huge turn for Duke, because he could cast Fatal Push on Mantis Rider. At the same time, he's putting down 2 green creatures, which dominate all of Butakov's creatures, especially the Auriok champion.
But a Mantis Rider off the top, just like that, easy peasy, lemon squeezy, and now Butakov is ready to get it done again in the air with his 3/3 flyer.
I think Butakov might even be considering an attack with everything, but he has to do the math here. That Tarmogoyf has instants, lands, creatures, and an artifact, so it's at least a 4/5, and that means Scavenging Ooze would eat Auriok champion, Tarmogoyf would eat Champion of the Parish. You would only get in for 2. However, Duke being on 2 would be theoretically lethal if it wasn't for Scavenging Ooze.
So let's spin the wheel here. Duke is probably going to fire off another copy of... not Reflector Mage. It's going to be another Bloodbraid Elf, leaving up a green handy here in case he wants to activate that Scavenging Ooze. Big money off the top. It is, well, decidedly small money, with a copy of Inquisition of Kozilek not doing a whole lot.
Wow. Those 2 Bloodbraid Elves have been...
Yeah, real whiffskis, huh?
Yeah. Can you imagine this card was banned in Modern?
Yeah. For those of you who aren't familiar with Modern,
great injustice. But
I mean, it died for the sins of Deathrite Shaman, I think. But no, she's ready to get it done once again, as we see now. A Phantasmal Image come in as another Mantis Rider.
That's pretty fantastic.
It is a fantastic Phantasmal Image here. And now I think Duke's just dead in the air, right?
Absolutely.
He can gain 1 life with that Scavenging Ooze, but with the Phantasmal Images coming, and the Mantis Rider coming across for 6 fresh damage here, right at Duke's Dome. And that's that. We've seen enough here, and Dmitriy Butakov, with a very, very fortuitous draw, has managed to steal indeed the game and the match here from Reid Duke.
And Butakov, I believe, looking at his face there in the end, he was aware that his deck delivered the right cards at the right time.
Yeah.
Just, going from what looked like the turning point into Mantis Rider, into Phantasmal Image, and Duke missing 2 times, that was huge.
A bit of a sketchy hand to begin with for Duke. They're very clunky and full of high-end cards. Didn't really have the removal that I think he wanted or needed. But look, hats off to Butakov. He played his deck beautifully and was rewarded with a win. I believe, my friends, we're actually going to get the chance to catch up with Dmitriy Butakov in a couple of minutes here. Tim Willoughby is going to get a hold of the Russian and have a chat with him about his deck. But get ready for this, I have to say. Get ready for... We're going to see a lot of humans. We're going to see a lot of Visit Phoenix. We're going to see Tron, White-Blue Control, Dredge. These are the decks, Simon, that we've got our eye on as the coverage team to make headlines this weekend.
Absolutely. And that's 5 decks, but of course that doesn't mean that they covered the Modern Magic.
Oh, no.
We're still
it's like, what, 20% of them?
Exactly. We're still looking at dozens of different decks, but there's a clear preference based on historical data. We know how the GPs went. We know how the MTGO events went. Of course, there's all the open series out there. And then you have the pros mostly theorizing, but also, of course, playtesting with the London Mulligan, with the knowledge of having open deck lists, and there are spicy decks for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to get a chance to get across some of them throughout the day, so don't worry too much. If you wanted to see that good spice, you're going to get a chance to do that. You mentioned the London Mulligan, Simon. For those of you who aren't across this already, it's been a big story in the Magic world over the last couple of weeks, of course. The London Mulligan, a fundamental change to the way we play the game, at least in the opening turns. Rather than the traditional mulligan to 6, mulligan to 5, mulligan to 4, and so on, we've got a slight twist. We're going to pick up on that later, Simon, and discuss exactly what it means for the format. But right now, Tim Willoughby is standing by with Dmitriy Butakov.
Thanks there, Riley. And thanks there, Riley. I'm here with Dmitriy Butakov, and nice to get the first win under the belt in Modern. There was a nice little moment that we had there where we saw, at the start of the game, Reid was like, most people, I feel like I'd be able to guess what they're playing, but you play everything in Modern because you're known for playing an awful lot on Magic Online. How has your testing been for this event?
Actually, the funny thing here is because I lacked time to prepare because of the MOX travels, because I didn't have time. I don't have time to travel back to Russia, so I have to combine this trip to Mythic Championship and Magic Online Championship. So I lacked time. But humans, I played humans for years, so it was kind of an easy choice. I played Tron before, but Tron just not my cup of tea.
Yeah, I know that the Mulligan rule has put a few people onto Tron where previously they might have been working with different decks, but it's kind of nice to feel like you've got a deck that's home base, right?
Yeah, I mean, I run 4 Meddling Mages. It's always great to know your opponent's decks. And the new Mulligan rule, it doesn't really affect humans, so it doesn't gain anything, it doesn't lose anything. Why not?
And we've obviously got past War of the Spark today. That went very well for you. A bunch more Modern rounds. Excited about the rest of today?
Of course, of course.
All right, thank you very much, Dmitriy Butakov from down here in our feature match area at Mythic Championship II.
Thanks so much there, Tim, with Dmitriy Butakov, the winner of round number 4, and his heads up against Reid Duke. We are going to move to one of our back tables where the games are still ongoing. And Simon, as we head down there, maybe we can pick up the discussion we were left with about the London Mulligan. What's happening now? People are drawing 7 cards as usual. If they don't like them, they send them back, draw another 7, and then instead of drawing the 6 that they would have, they now put 1 card on the bottom of the library and then 2 if they don't like that, and so on and so forth. It's going to have important implications for the Modern format. We're kind of stress testing it here at Mythic Championship 2, and we're going to, of course, bring you up to speed with all the latest and greatest developments with that. But right now, Humans versus Tron, this is going to be a matchup, as I said, son, we're going to see throughout the entire weekend. Yeah, and I do appreciate the fact that you have a player like Yuya Watanabe just saying, look, Tron was already great. I enjoyed playing it, but with this Mulligan rule, it has only gotten better. And I know some other players will just, out of principle, say, look, this is not my kind of, I'm never playing.
Not my cup of tea, I think, is what Butakov said. Yeah. Some players going to steal well clear of it, exactly right. But look, it is an undoubtedly powerful deck. It's certainly a deck that is quite divisive, I think, to put it mildly, to put it diplomatically. It does have its detractors, as indeed it has its proponents. But slamming a card into play on turn number 3, the power of that sort of thing cannot be denied. And it looks like Wormcoil Engine is the pickup now off of this Ancient Stirrings. And now a Ratchet Bomb for Yuya Watanabe, a useful piece of interaction against the humans list. It is a bit slow here because Johnson didn't play any 1-drops, so this will take some time to get useful. Key cards in this matchup, of course, when it comes to humans versus Tron, are Oblivion Stone, Ratchet Bomb. Sometimes we see things like Dismember coming out of the board for Watanabe and Tron and that sort of thing. But you know, it's not set in stone. No, but don't forget Ugin, of course, which is basically a I win the game effect. However, on the other side, you have the human deck with so much disruption and you know exactly which cards you fear. Right, even a card like Wormcoil Engine, you can beat that. You can beat that with Phantasmal Image. You can beat it with Reflector Mages, maybe even both in combination. But then, more importantly, Meddling Mage and Kitesail Freebooter to take these key answer cards, and most of them are Wrath effects. And this is exactly what we're seeing here, Simon, with a Kitesail Freebooter flying onto the stage and probably going to pick off that O-Stone. The other opportunity, of course, is the Ancient Stirrings. No, Ancient Stirrings is the pick here. So Sikik Johnson, obviously confident that the Oblivion Stone does not pose a threat to him. Yeah, that's because the copied Meddling Mage is preventing that from being cast at the moment. I see.
they've got an easy enough answer to it on board, but these are the key plays here from the Humans player. Phyrexian Revoker in hand as well.
I also just wanted to check something real quick. Johnson knows that Yuya's list is playing 3 Walking Ballista, which is not something... Oh, no, not in this round.
Not in this round, no. But that's the sort of information these players will have access to beyond round 4, Simon.
So it was actually quite a heads-up play to call Ballista with the first Meddling Mage when this is not a 3 or 4 of in all Tron lists.
No, but it looks like Watanabe's made a good call, especially in a field flooded with Humans, to play Walking Ballista. But, well, not in this specific situation he hasn't, because, of course, it's named there like that. But Seeking Johnson here seems to be in a commanding position. He does have the key, the 1-2 punch that you need against a deck like Tron. He's got pressure and he's got disruption. And in this situation, those cards are one and the same. The cards providing the pressure are also the cards providing the disruption. That's exactly what you need.
But it is a fragile level of protection. If one of these pieces break, then the floodgates are just open.
Yeah.
It's like Yuya is just sitting there waiting to just drop the bombs. And he has Tron, natural Tron. No, I believe there was a Stirrings cast. So
well, I mean,
turn 3 Tron.
They've always got it. They've always got turn 3 Tron. Let's not delude
now
ourselves.
with the mulligan rule, it's
just like it's like 110% that they've got it. I know. Here's a Wormcoil Engine in addition to an Expedition map. So Wormcoil Engine, not the greatest tool in the arsenal of the Tron player because it does turn on those Reflector Mages, but in hand for Seeking Johnson here is Phyrexian Revoker and 2 Lando Calrissians. There's Plains. And is this the Revoker naming...
Ratchet Bomb?
I mean, that's the obvious pick, right? How scared of Ugin are you?
I don't think you're calling Wormcoil Engine, so...
No.
And the Expedition map has already... There's already Tron on the battlefield.
Already done its work. The Expedition's already been successful. They're just going for seconds. So Watanabe now. In dire straits. He needs to find an answer. That Oblivion Stone's not going to do it in hand, of course. It would be great were it not for that Phantasmal Image.
He does have a Wormcoil Engine on the battlefield, so I don't think things are looking as bad for him as they did before.
All of the interaction that Johnson has brought to bear here, certainly one way to approach the matchup, and an effective one too. But again, I mean, are we looking at in a position here, Simon, where all of the Reflector Mages and whatnot have just come out? Have they hit the sideboard, do you think, because Tron isn't a creature-heavy deck?
So, looking at Johnson's sideboard, I don't see a ton of cards to bring in, but Damping Sphere is, of course, a card that you would want to have.
Oh, wow. So look at that. That's a huge play here for Watanabe. He's put himself right back into this Nature's Claim, targeting the Phyrexian Revoker. All of a sudden, that unlocks that Ratchet Bomb. And guess what? All of those creatures had 2 power. Now the Oblivion Stone just doubling down on that insurance policy. Oh my goodness me. Yuya Watanabe with an absolute masterclass. He's turned on his head, ladies and gentlemen. He's turned on his head at the speed of light. Blink and you'll miss it. And Watanabe takes it out 2 games to 1. Very, very simple stuff from him there. And it's exactly what you said before, Simon. It's exactly what you said before, mate. You're like, if he just finds one way to break the dam, it's all going to come flooding. It's all going to come undone, and that's exactly what happened.
I didn't know that it would only take 2 seconds, but
yeah, you look away to sort of check your Snapchat or whatever else, and all of a sudden now the game's over, Red Rover, and that's that. We're going to move on now to our other back table here. We do have a game in progress, as you can see. It looks like we've got a Whir Prison deck on the right-hand side of your screen, and on the left, I like to see this.
I think that's an Affinity deck. Looks to me like the Experimental Frenzy.
Excuse me.
Build.
It is indeed. It's not Whir Prison. I saw the Spire of Industry, what I thought was Ensnaring Bridge, but it looks like a Ornithopter that may have been discovered before we descended onto the African savanna from the treetops. Those are old Ornithopters, dude.
Also, Paul Riesel just isn't a Whir Prison kind of guy.
No, that's very true. I mean, I should have known that, really. Come on. Get your head in the game. Let's see. Double thing in the ice now for Thomas van der Pelt here. And is it Phoenix, of course, the talk of the tournament recently, talk of the format, I would say. It's definitely one of the more dominant decks in Modern.
And the Belgians, the Viren brothers, were 2 of the first to really bring that deck list to constructed, playable, competitive standards. So I'm not surprised that Belgium, or at least Thomas here from Belgium, continues to play Is It Phoenix.
Well, we'll see what Rietzel can do here. He definitely has the life total advantage with Pat van der Pelt just down to 8. But getting through those things is going to be difficult. Looks like the Experimental Frenzy has outlived its usefulness. And so now in hand, Galvanic Blast. What else is going on there? We've got an Arcbound Ravager by the look of things. And is that another Experimental Frenzy?
It is. And we are joining this game in a really weird spot because Vanderpelt doesn't have a lot of cards to work with. But these things in the ice are kind of scary if they ever flip. The game is basically over.
Arcbound Ravager now. A key threat in the Affinity list.
Is Reid still going for the kill here? Is that why he opted to destroy Experimental Frenzy?
Oh, hello.
No,
just wanted to cast it. That's a 6 mana. That's a 10 mana Arcbound Ravager. Destroy my Experimental Frenzy, play a Ravager, another Frenzy.
It wasn't too far off, right? Inkmoth Nexus just with Arcbound Ravager gets lethal very, very quickly.
Very quickly indeed, especially with Darksteel Citadel, Mox Opal, a couple of Ornithopters and Springleaf Drums here to sacrifice. And you can see that's exactly what Vanderpelt is counting up right now. He wants to know exactly how dead he is to this Inkmoth Nexus. Such is the explosivity of the Affinity list, Simon.
I think it would have been an attack for 8 poison. So two artifacts.
So it actually would have been better if he just had a Blinkmoth Nexus.
That would have been lethal.
It actually would have been lethal had it not had Infect. Wow. So, Vanderpelt now in the tank, 2 cards in hand. Let's have a look at his graveyard here.
Wait, doesn't this mean that you could have attacked for lethal with that final Ornithopter? Doesn't mean you should have, but your opponent was on a single card in hand.
Crackling Drake. That's going to shore up the defenses a little bit. We know that there are certainly a lot of cards in or instant sorceries in the graveyard there for Vanderpelt. There's the Blinkmoth Nexus. And has Paul Rietzel just done the old Riley Knight, just Experimental Frenzy into 2 lands?
It doesn't matter. He has lethal here. He has lethal with Ornithopter and Inkmoth Nexus attacking, or just 2 Ornithopters.
Yeah, because he can shove all the +1/+1 counters onto whichever creature is unblocked by the Crackling Drake here.
You got it.
I did it. I'm so smart. Really, I'm just so smart, honestly. Ornithopter getting in the attack with a 0-2, and of course Inkmoth Nexus getting busy as well. And no matter how Vanderpelt blocks, the instant speed redistribution of these +1/+1 counters, you can see him counting it up.
Yeah, you can count all you want.
Yep. The numbers still add up the same. Crunch those numbers. Crunch them again. Crunch them again, says Michael. But it's not going to do him any good here. Thomas Vanderpelt going down swinging to an Ornithopter. And you'll see now this Arcbound Ravager. It's a hungry, hungry hippo. It's going to eat up all of these artifacts. Put a bunch of +1/+1 counters on the unblocked Ornithopter here. And look at that. Wow, just gorging itself at the at the multi-planar buffet here, Simon. Getting a D12 out. All the barbarians in the room very happy to see that one. And a clean attack for 8 in the air for Exact Z's. He's done it with style. Paul Rietzel taking out game number 2. And indeed the match here. So the American Hall of Famer will be very happy with that indeed. As we bring it back to the booth, ladies and gentlemen, 3 games of Modern Magic on your screens throughout round number 4. And the good news is the party's just started. We've got 4 more rounds of Modern today. We've still got so much action to bring you across the entire weekend. War of the Spark Draft, more Modern as well. And right now, we are going to get underway with some time-shifted Magic. Time Walk Magic coming your way. A pre-recorded game from previously. We're going to get underway with game number 2, including the London Mulligan. Simon, this is going to give us a chance to talk about the mechanics of this whole process.
Yes. So what you need to know, based on the previous Mulligan rule, where you just drew fewer cards, this time around you're always going to draw 7, but then you're forced to put cards back under your library according to the number of cards. Oh, how do I say this correctly? The number of times you mulligan is the number of cards you have to put back.
Exactly right. So you still end up with a hand that has the number of cards in it that you would have if you had mulligan. It's just your process for selecting those cards improves enormously. Now, let's get to the good stuff. Robert Graves on Vanifar Evolution, otherwise known as the poor man's pod. Birthing Pod, banned in Modern. It used to be a powerhouse of the format, but Vanifar, Prime Speaker Vanifar, an all-star in friendly constructed matches in Standard. And it's ready to get it done, Simon, with a incredible 1-2 punch combo that can win the game on the spot.
Yeah, I do hope that we get to see it. Just to show you this incredible combo of Vanifar going off And we've learned that this can be as easy as just having a single 1-drop in play, and you have the whole chain. Maybe we should explain what to look out for.
Yes, indeed. We'll very quickly talk about what Watts is playing here. Andrew Watts on Abzan, very much the sister deck to Jund, splashing white instead of red, typically for cards like Lingering Souls and hard-hitting sideboard hammer cards, as they're known. But Robert Graves, as you say, if he can untap with a Vanifar and any 1-drop, right? Let me see if I can do this. It's a 6-step program, Simon. Sacrifice the 1-drop, get a Scrib Ranger, untap the Vanifar, right? Yes. Sacrifice the Scrib Ranger, get a Renegade Rallier, bring back the Scrib Ranger with the Renegade Rallier's trigger.
And that's guaranteed to trigger because you've sacrificed
it. Sacrifice the Renegade Rallier with the untapped Vanifar, get a Village Bell Ringer. Oh, sorry, the Scrib Ranger...
that's it, you messed up.
I messed up. No, never mind. All right, I quit. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it. Thanks so much for sticking with me over these 5.5 years, but that is that for me.
You sacrifice your Scrib Ranger.
Again.
Because you need another 3-drop.
You need another 3-drop. Yeah.
Then you...
I was going really well.
Yeah, but at this stage, you would have been searching your deck, and then you would have realized you messed up.
No, because at this stage, my opponent would have already conceded, because they would have assumed that I was... Actually, you know what? They probably would have looked at me and gone, he's not going to get it. I'm going to sit here and wait for him to stuff it up. And then I'm going to attack him with Lingering Souls. I'm going to attack him with my Tarmogoyf for lethal. In any case, I'm reasonably confident Robert Graves is going to make that mistake. To finish up, Village Bell Ringer, untap Vanifar, sacrifice the Renegade Rallier, get a Restoration Angel, blink the Village Bell Ringer, sacrifice the Restoration Angel, get a Kiki Jiki, infinite Village Bell Ringers, your opponent is deafened.
Yeah, absolutely right. And usually with these kind of decks, we know this from pod decks, we know this from all kinds of decks that go into these loops. There's generally more than one way to get there. There's some redundancy built in. And also, you want to still be able to win if one of these key cards that we just described is actually in the graveyard or has been killed somewhere.
And a Rhythm of the Wild is another way to ensure that you can go off almost immediately, giving your Prime Speaker Vanifar haste. This is... right out of the Arena Boys playbook. We've been doing this since well before it was cool, Simon. We were playing Prime Speaker Vanifar and Rhythm of the Wild before the cool kids were doing it, like Robert Graves. So if you want to get across that, well, I don't know, don't waste your time. Watch this instead. But in any case, a very powerful card to bring to bear in such a heavy creature-focused deck.
Prime Speaker Vanifar, you see there on the right-hand side, is already pretty difficult to kill in this format. 4 toughness and 4 casting cost. That is tough to do. But when it has haste and it's threatening the victory almost immediately, it's quite scary for even an Abzan deck with so much removal.
So Watts now sitting behind 2 of the archetypical superstars of Modern, both a Tarmogoyf and a Dark Confidant. This is what makes this deck what it is, really, the powerful 2-drop options that it has in green and black. And of course, offset, once again, by white cards, Path to Exile, Lingering Souls, out of the sideboard, just for example, cards like Stony Silence, cards like Rest in Peace. Maybe you're not wanting to play Rest in Peace in your Tarmogoyf deck. Look, the argument will rage on. But Andrew Watts with a resilient and powerful and ultimately very flexible deck.
This is what draws players and in particular pros to the Abzan colors or any of the green-black decks, really. You have so much control over what's happening with discard, removal, card advantage, planeswalkers. You get a little bit of everything, but at the same time, you're not going to spike too much. The power ceiling is just lower than that of some of the combo decks of Modern.
It's what we call a 50% deck, right? Or a 55% deck. It's not. It doesn't have any hugely lopsided matchups. Doesn't have any free wins, but it doesn't have any. It doesn't just fold to anything either, except Tron.
Okay, it looks like Prime Speaker Vanifar isn't that hard to kill.
Yeah, after all, yeah. Look at that. I was going to say dodges Abrupt Decay, dodges an unrevolted Fatal Push, dodges Lightning Bolt, doesn't dodge Assassin's Trophy. Vraska always gets her target, and in this situation, Vanifar has gone down.
And many Abzan and green-black players are opting for the full 4 Assassin's Trophy. It is good against Tron, but also just having that unconditional removal is great.
Here's Kiki Jiki now.
Completely uncastable.
Yes, doesn't look like a hugely achievable proposition right now. And we'll see what's next on the docket for Andrew Watts. Big attack now. Tarmogoyf getting busy along with that Dark Confidant. Robert Graves under a lot of pressure. He hasn't been able to pull together the pieces of the puzzle that he needs here, Simon.
And Tarmogoyf pre-combat grew... Thoughtseize pre-combat grew the Tarmogoyf. We now have instant sorcery, land, and creature. So once again, a 4-power Tarmogoyf, which means Graves is looking at lethal.
Yeah, yep. And so as a result, cracking that Flooded Strand, looking to fetch extra lands out of the one step closer to casting that Kiki Jiki with a Sacred Foundry out of the deck thanks to Flooded Strand. But things not looking good for Robert Graves in this Vanifar Evolution deck. I really do hope to see more of this list throughout the weekend. I think it's a very, very sweet deck that also packs a fair bit of a punch. I mean, winning a game on the spot like that, an instant win combo, I win button that still has a game plan, a plan B, but it's not looking good here.
And it is actually kind of a Kiki core deck, just upgraded with the Vanifar combo kill.
Back to Watts now, who is really just going from strength to strength as we see Path to Exile off the top, another nice bit of creature interaction for him and a land to boot, but he doesn't have to do anything here other than just turn his creatures sideways. 3 mana, what's it going to be here? Liliana the Last Hope, just for good measure. She's going to go downstairs, gain a little bit of extra value. Watts just flexing on Graves here. In they come. And we'll see a Path to Exile as well from Robert Graves. Buys himself another turn, Simon.
Yeah, it looked like he was just done with. But
he really sold it to us, hey?
Great body language, showing defeat.
And the Oscar goes to... But look, he's going to have to pull something very special out of thin air here in order to hold off another copy of Tarmogoyf, and that Bob still ticking away, still providing the cards here for Andrew Watts. Plenty of cards in Modern have nicknames, and Dark Confident is one of them. Bob Ma was the winner of an invitational tournament that meant that he got to have his face put on the Dark Confident there. That's a Din Rover Horror. Is it? Surely it's not a copy of actual Din Rover Horror. No, it can't be.
No.
Say it and so. Oh, it's Fiery Justice. It's Fiery Justice. Yeah. Fiery Justice.
Just not the original printing.
No, exactly. It looks a little bit like it. All the same here. Robert Graves on 3. Here's a Kalitas. We've now got Dark Confident coming in across for 2. Graves down to 1. Can he find what he needs off the top? I don't know if there's a card in the format that saves him here. Not in this deck, at least. He shocks himself out of the game. And that is that for round number 4 here at Mythic Championship London. Riley Knight, Simon Gertzen. We're going to take a quick break, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back with more Modern before very much longer, so don't go anywhere.